Welcome to Trump Reviews, BOOMSDAY cards. With the new patch upon us, it's now time to look back at the cards and see where I was right and where I was wrong. The Madman! Here are the BOOMSDAY Druid cards. They're really, really good. This is the class that makes out with the most amount of good cards, I would say. And it's across a variety of decks as well. So let's start off with the Floop's Glorious Gloop. 4 stars. You're gonna be able to create a bunch of stuff, and then Floop's Glorious Gloop will probably be better than Innervate at some point during the game. So Floop's Glorious Gloop, actual rating 2 stars. Floop's Glorious Gloop was tried out in some amount during the earlier part of the meta combo deck, where you tried to draw out a bunch of your stuff and then played the Cthulhu. That's now been refined, and also in Token Druid, which has now cut the card, so it's no longer used. An interesting card, which may see play again someday, but not today. Biology Project, 5 stars. This was in my top 10 cards, coming in at number 2. I feel like it's an extremely strong card for a variety of decks of Druid that want to get to the late game. Well, this is one of those cases where you have to see it and actually play it to know. During the early part of the BOOMSDAY meta, every single Druid was running 2 of these pretty much, and then slowly declined, sometimes 1 of, and now it is most commonly seen as a 0 of. It does turn out that ramping your opponent by the same amount that you ramp is not good enough to warrant in your deck. Biology Project, 2 stars. Saw play? No, doesn't see play. Dendrologist, 1 star. I don't think that Dendrologist is quite good enough to make the cut. Yep, pretty much right. Landscaping, I'm rating 4 stars. And that's because I feel like Token Druid might run Landscaping in its deck. It's very efficient, 3 mana for 2 2/2s, but also it synergizes very well with Mulch Muncher. So this one I am surprised about. Landscaping ended up not even seeing enough experimentation to make it into the 2-star category. 1 star, no one played it despite it being 3 mana 4/4 in stats across 2 minions. Huh, that was a surprise. I did end up missing the mark on this one, possibly because I also thought Mulch Muncher was really good. Phlebidinous Floop is very much talked about as a super legendary that Druid has gotten, and I agree. This is going to be amazing, 5 stars. Phlebidinous Floop is mainly going to be used alongside Malygos in order to get 2 Malygos on the board in some way, shape, or form. Yep, pretty much correct there. Not really a genius prediction, as that was already a deck, and Floop looked like it fit right into it, and it did. And it was very good. Juicy Psych Melon, 4 stars. Even though this is a sprint that tutors, I don't necessarily think that it is going to see play in Malygos, even though it is going to get the Dream Petal Florist, and the Malygos, and the Lich King, and potentially Tyrantus. I certainly put Juicy Psych Melon as well as all 4 of those cards in the deck. That's incredible value. But it is possible that it is too slow. It's interesting, some people did in fact bring the Lich King and or Tyrantus into their fall HCT championship deck, but yet they did not include Juicy Psych Melon. That's perhaps just because with only 1 copy of each 7, 8, and 9 and 10 drop, and sometimes only with 1, 8, and 1, 10, because you don't want the 7, 8, 9, and 10 cost cards on 4 mana. That's not what you want to be doing on turn 4. And later on, you're going to already have drawn them, so that was the main problem with Juicy Psych Melon. No rush to pick up those 7, 8, 9s, and 10s. 1 star. Tending Taurian, 1 star. Druid can do way more than, arena vanilla type fairness right now. This is proof, by the way, that a 6 mana 7, 8 is not quite powerful enough to see play in Constructed. Also, boy does this make the new Giggling Inventor look bad. Dream Petal Florist, 4 stars. It's a way to get your Malygos to work without needing the twig. So it wasn't a surprise that Dream Petal Florist could do all that stuff, but it was rated 4 stars for the same reason that Juicy Psych Melon was rated 4 stars. It looked like it was going to be able to do insane stuff, but wasn't sure if a 7 mana 4/4 would be too slow for a deck. But it ends up that it is in fact a 1 of card in most Druid decks, including Togwaggle or Malygos, and it is actually a 5-star card. It's a critical card for those combos. Gloop Sprayer, 1 star. Gloop Sprayer is just gross overkill. Faceless Manipulator for 5 mana gets you a copy of a minion, and that's about what you need. That pretty much defines Gloop Sprayer, 1 star. It is so ridiculous overkill. Mulch Muncher, 5 stars. It's a card that's being slept on right now because I'm reminded of Corridor Creeper. And originally I wasn't because I was like, this is really specific, it's just treants. But what really tipped me over is realizing that Living Mana will usually get you 5 treants, and Soul of the Forest, when currently played in Token Druids, will generally get you about 5 treants. So you play any one of those 2 cards and then you have a 5 mana 8/8 rush, which I'd say is pretty good. But if you play 2 of those cards, then you're getting a 0 mana 8/8 rush, and it doesn't even have to be in your hand. I think that's going to adjust the token deck to put in Living Mana, and I think you'll put in Mulch Muncher also. Sadly, that alternate reality did not happen. The theory sounds really good, I'm gonna say that much, but it ended up being that the Mulch Muncher package wasn't strong enough because you had to put in cards like Landscaping, which I guess were too weak, and Living Mana, which seemed like they would be like on the border of playable, but turned out to not be. So Mulch Muncher, 1 star, having not even seen any serious experimentation. Secret Plan, 3 stars. Replaces the weakest spell in Spellhunter, which is probably Arcane Shot. Just as a nice 1 mana into 2 mana card so that you can activate your Spellstone. Secret Plan might also see play in the Subject 9 deck. Correct! Spellhunter ends up being around tier 3-ish, and Secret Plan is sometimes in that deck. It's still seeing play, so barely escapes the 2-star bucket. Next up we have Venomizer, which is one of the best magnetic mechs out there. And here's where we begin with the controversial rating, 1 star. Venomizer is clearly going to see play in Mech Hunter if Mech Hunter exists, because it is extremely solid, but I just don't see that as quite unfair enough alongside all of the other mech cards to make Hunter great. Alright, good job, Trump. You made the bold call to be bearish on mech and magnetic, and for the most part you were right. The looks were deceiving, because mechs are pretty much useless. Magnetic is pretty much useless. Fireworks Tech, 2 stars. I think Fireworks Tech is better than Venomizer. So for that reason, I think Fireworks Tech will see some experimentation, more experimentation than Venomizer, before it is discarded, because once again, I think that Mech Hunter is not good enough. So where it did see play a little bit is with Mechanical Whelp and Death Rattle Hunter. However, that has phased out because current Death Rattle Hunter does not run the mech stuff. Even though Fireworks Tech is a really efficient way of activating Death Rattle, it just turns out that Mechanical Whelp is too clunky to put into those decks, so those decks have phased out, pretty much. The Fireworks Tech is correctly rated at 2 stars. Goblin Prank. It's just a prank, bro, 1 star. Some people are thinking about running Goblin Bombs with the Goblin Prank. It activates the Goblin Bomb. You can summon a card which summons a Goblin Bomb and then immediately prank the bomb, but that does not look good in terms. That was not good. So Goblin Prank, 1 star. Cybertech Chip, 1 star. I do think that this card is decent if you manage to hit 2 things with it, but hitting 2 things with Cybertech Chip is going to be pretty tough. Also, given how lowly I'm going to rank most of the mechs, the random mech cards are not very good. Yep, turns out 1 mana less on Infest was still not good enough. Maybe next time around we'll see a 1 mana version of this card. Maybe then it'll be good enough? Wow. Bomb Toss, 1 star. This packaging of +1 mana and a 0/2 Goblin Bomb just isn't worth it. The Goblin Bomb cards are just so poor. This entire idea that the Goblin Bomb stuff wasn't gonna work, people thought it would blow up in my face. But no, who's laughing now? This entire Goblin Bomb thing did in fact not work out, and Bomb Toss is 1 star, having not seen any experimentation or enough experimentation. Spider Bomb, fantastic mech card for Hunter, 2 stars. The problem with Mech Hunter, as I've emphasized, in my view, is that there is just not enough support for all this stuff. So I got baited by the mech tag here. It's being played in a deck that does not care about the mech tag. It's in Death Rattle Hunter, one of the top decks of this meta. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that is decent with the activate Death Rattle cards, huh? So Spider Bomb ends up being 5 stars as a nice cheap way to deadly shot while also getting a 2/2 on the board. One can make the argument, is this card bad without mechs? And that's fair. It is pretty bad without mechs, even in the play dead Terror Skill Stalker deck, because yeah, you could play. Oh
crap! I did consider it.
None of them really played Deadly Shot, and you would have to combo this with exactly Play Dead or with Terror Skill Stalker. That's a little bit pricey. Necro Mechanic, 1 star. There's some pretty good death rattles that you would love to trigger twice, but it just costs so much, and it does work with Boommaster Flark as well. In order to do a mega amount of damage, but this is just way too slow.
Necromechanic ended up being too slow. 1 star, even though there is a Death Rattle Hunter out there, so that's kind of spooky, right? Even though there's a Death Rattle Hunter, Necromechanic still doesn't see play.
Boommaster Flark, 1 star. The Boommaster Flark does combine with Necromechanic in order to potentially deal 16 damage. Wow, that sounds like a lot.
Wow.
Right? You know what also deals almost as much damage with way less work? 2 skill commands, and then you toss in your hero power.
So yeah, this card did look good, and I was scared to rate it 1 star, but that's correct. Just turns out that Goblin Bombs are that bad.
Only for Hunter, we have Flark's Boomzooka, 1 star. It's just way too much variance. Doesn't seem like it's gonna be workable.
Yep, that's pretty much correct. Flark's Boomzooka did have some hype from some players, but ended up not working because precisely you don't always pull the Death Rattle minions from your deck. Sometimes you pull the support cards, which are useless.
Shooting Star, 1 star. Right. Big Spell Mage isn't going to use it because it's not a big spell. Tempo Mage isn't going to use it because they don't want to control the board like this. So for that reason, Shooting Star is trying to go into some sort of control mage, which is not Big Spell Mage, and that's where the spell damage theme comes in.
Hey, for those of you laughing now, none of you corrected me at all on this card. It did seem like Tempo Mage doesn't want to control the board, right? And yeah, we all knew that that spell damage +2 card was coming out, which is really good with Shooting Star, but we didn't quite see that 2 just fitting right into Tempo Mage, right? So it turns out that Shooting Star is really good for 2 reasons. 1 mana Arcane Explosion is pretty decent by itself, as it turns out. So we'll have to keep that in mind in the future. 2, it's really nice with Sorcerer's Apprentice, then it's just 0 mana. 3, and biggest, it is really good with Cosmic Anomaly. Shooting Star, 5 stars in Tempo Mage. Worth noting that Shooting Star is about to collapse also in the future because of the Mana Wurm nerf.
Celestial Emissary, 1 star by the way. The main problem is this setup costs too much for what you get.
So Celestial Emissary did see a tiny amount of play in Tempo Mage because Tempo Mage was searching for that 30th card. Celestial Emissary is not really that commonly seen, so 2 stars really. But you do see more Money Berserker and Ooze and just like a second copy of Counterspell. Celestial Emissary does end up being just weak enough to not fit into Tempo Mage.
Research Project, 1 star. Some people point towards Cold Light Oracle and its previous play as evidence that Research Project might work well. But here's the thing about Cold Light Oracle. It was played in an era where Mage had Ice Block.
Indeed, this card ended up not seeing any real play, given that it is -1 card advantage. However, there is a Leyline OTK Mage out there, which, I mean, if you kill them in 1 turn, then the cards also are useless, which is fringe enough and gave this card enough experimentation, and this card was experimented with in Tempo Mage just a bit as well, to put into the 2 star category.
Astral Rift, 1 star. It's not good enough.
Yep, 1 star.
Stargazer Luna, 3 stars. Tempo Mages will run Stargazer Luna. Fantastic card in that deck. Doesn't define the deck, but just a very good addition to it.
Pretty much, I thought Stargazer Luna would fit into Tempo Mage, and I predicted that Tempo Mage would be tier 3. But it ended up being that Tempo Mage was tier 1. So Stargazer Luna is supposed to be 5 stars. And it's one of those cases where I was just like, yeah, Stargazer Luna is going to fit into Tempo Mage. And then I was just guessing how good Tempo Mage would be, and I guessed wrong.
Cosmic Anomaly, 1 star. I have to applaud the Hearthstone team for really pushing the spell damage thing. Because, seriously, Cosmic Anomaly is a pretty scary card to print. That is a lot of spell damage on a low-cost card with decent stats. But such a card truly lets us back away for a moment, and realize, you know what, spell damage is not actually that good. The only reason why the Evolved Cobalt saw play is because low-cost spells dealt direct damage, which is to say that Ice Lance existed. And given that Mage does not have cheap spells that can deal damage to the face, Cosmic Anomaly will not see play. The big miss here is not quite realizing that Shooting Star and Cosmic Anomaly were both going to Tempo Mage. And it turns out that 4 mana, 4/3 for spell damage +2 is good enough to run. So, 5 stars. Cosmic Anomaly's purpose right now appears to be with Shooting Star, which is a low-cost AoE.
Oh, there you go.
That looks like it could have some success, but I see very little chance that a mid-range Mage deck that tries to control the board will be successful. And sure, Cosmic Anomaly as well as Celestial Emissary seem to be building up towards this card, Unexpected Results. 1 star. That's not worth it for the payoff. If you were in the past and you were told, hey, Cosmic Anomaly is actually in all of the Mage decks out there, what would you think? Like, would you think, oh, it might be because of Unexpected Results, or, I wonder if it's because of Shooting Star? It just goes to show you that it would be tough to rate everything. Unexpected Results is at least rated correctly at 1 star. It ends up being not good enough with even Cosmic Anomaly. And Meteorologist rewards having those cards. Meteorologist 1-star card, by the way. Because the payoff for having a value hand in this case is just being able to cast Avenging Wrath and have a 3/3 attached to it. And that's not compelling enough to build the value Mage deck. Indeed, Big Spell Mage ends up being a legitimate like tier 3-ish deck in this meta, but Meteorologist does not see play in that deck. 1 star. Astromancer. The reason why Big Spell Mage doesn't run Spiteful Summoner in their deck, which is also 7 mana, is that it just doesn't work in the control Spell Mage. Those decks really cut down their minions because they're just looking to control the field with spells and AoE effects. Your minions are generally kind of like pointless. So that's why Astromancer is 1 star. Well, it turns out that Astromancer is better than Spiteful Summoner because Astromancer you can consistently get a hand size of 6, 7, 8 perhaps. For that reason, Astromancer is put into Big Spell Mage, which as a tier 3 deck would put Astromancer at 3 stars. Finally, we have the Mage legendary spell, Luna's Pocket Galaxy. 1 star. It requires way too much setup. It requires some luck that the big minions in your deck aren't drawn before you draw Luna's Pocket Galaxy. It just does not look like this Galaxy card is going to work out. Luna's Pocket Galaxy was interesting enough to experiment with early on, and for that reason, 2 stars. It's after such fallen off though, because indeed it is really tough to build a deck where you have to reliably get that Pocket Galaxy and then cast it before you can do anything. Auto Defense Matrix. 1 star. I just did not see this as impactful enough to warrant a deck slot in your deck. Yep, Auto Defense Matrix, 1 star. Worth noting that this was close enough that I did consider rating it higher. Which leads me to Mech Paladin in general with Glowtron. Now Glowtron I'm actually going to rate 4 stars. Glowtron is only 4 stars here because I think that it's going to make its way into Odd Paladin. It's going to replace the Dire Mole that is sometimes in Odd Paladin. So, fun fact about Glowtron. I was looking up Odd Paladin deck lists, and first of all, yes, Odd Paladin is the only deck running Glowtron because Mech Paladin doesn't exist. Secondly, and this is the big surprise, there are some high win rate decks for Odd Paladin that run Dire Mole instead of a Glowtron. That's presumably because even though Glowtron is strictly better, nearly strictly better in the sense that you can magnetize Glowtron to itself, some players are using like the older deck list because it never got updated or something, and it doesn't matter because the only benefit of Glowtron over Dire Mole is in fact that you can pretty much only magnetize it to itself, which is such a small thing that people just don't even bother changing their deck. So Glowtron, just like Dire Mole, is actually 3 stars in Odd Paladin, having seen slightly less play given the additional cards you can put in Odd Paladin now. Crystal Smith Kangor, 1 star. Control Paladin and Midrange Paladin, both of those decks are just bad. They didn't see any play in the current meta, and there aren't enough compelling arguments that it'll be good in the next meta either. Where it does see play, and this is kind of a new development, is in Even Paladin.
and it's strictly because it has the keyword lifesteal on it. Because then your corpse takers can actually have lifesteal. Though Kangor is much less played than other 4-star cards, I'm rating this 4 stars since even Paladin is looking like a tier 1 or possibly tier 2 deck if it's not tier 1. Christology, 1 star. The main problem is mid-range Paladin and Control Paladin, as I've established, are very poor choices of deck archetypes to play. That's pretty much it in a nutshell, and I stand by that. Christology is not played right now. Christology, it seems good, 2 mana draw 2, but it's just not right for any deck right now. Annoy Module, 1 star. Decent magnetic card, but this kind of sets the tone for mech cards. They're defensive, and defensive cards do not allow you to kill, control, or combo decks. Annoy Module sadly meets the same fate as all of the mech Paladin cards, and even though this looked like a really good idea on the Mechano Egg, it just wasn't good enough. Prismatic Lens, fascinating card. 1 star. With proper high rolling, Prismatic Lens does enable you to do some really disgusting things, but then you have the chance of activating your lens, and then you're not playing Consecration or Hammer of Wrath. It's just, Prismatic Lens is seeing some play in the Death Knight Paladin OTK deck, purely because card draw is so hard to come by in that deck. So 4 mana draw 2 cards suddenly is like, I guess I'll play it. For that reason, barely sees 2 stars. Next up we have the big card, which is going to push Mechano Paladin to work, if it does work. Mechano Egg, 1 star. Even I, the mayor of Value Town, must nod my head to those combo decks out there, which don't care about your value. If you're too slow to kill them, they get the value by dealing 30 damage to you. The amount of value you gain doesn't matter if you're just going to die, if you give the opponent too long an amount of time. So yes, Mechano Egg was weak pretty much for that reason, and this type of mid-range Paladin is a weak type of archetype. But that said, Mechano Egg still saw enough experimentation to warrant a 2-star rating. It's kind of the highlight of the mech stuff for Paladin. Drink Ray, 1 star. I think I've really hammered home the concept of mid-range Paladin and Control Paladin not being great. Is the 3rd copy of Equality that good that you run the Shrink Ray? So it turns out that Shrink Ray is potentially good enough to see a 1-of copy in some control decks. Because yeah, 2 Equality just isn't enough. I might as well run the worst Equality, is the idea behind Shrink Ray. And yes, the setting the attack to 1 is useful. You can delay killing your opponent's stuff for a while. Shrink Ray gets a 2 star. Next, Glowstone Technician, 1 star. This is a card that gets you so much value if you build your deck to draw a bunch of cards and then play Glowstone Technician. But I think we've established at this point that a value deck I don't really think is good. So slow. Yeah, it's so slow, my goodness. 1 star. And we have Kangor's Endless Army. That big legendary spell from Paladin, 1 star. Here's the problem. You need to kill these combo decks by like turn 13-ish, and also the other problem is Kangor's Endless Army is a legendary spell. It's a 1-of in your deck. What are the chances that you're gonna draw your trump card? Will you have this all set up by that time? I think it won't be. I think it's too slow. And I was just a little bit off in my calibration on this card, as well as Mechano Egg. 2 star on Kangor's Endless Army in that it did see enough experimentation to bump it up into the 2-star category. One of the cards I rated top 10. Whenever you have a 0-mana spell, you gotta watch out, because those could create ridiculous things, and this is no exception. 5-star card. I predict that Topsy-Turvy could create a new archetype, or rather, really bolster up an existing archetype in the good old Divine Spirit Inner Fire deck. Instead of Inner Fire, we run Topsy-Turvy. So Topsy-Turvy test subject deck ended up not being as good as I thought it would be. Famously, it was at one point the most played deck, despite it hosting around a 30% win rate, which was amazing. Like actually under 30%, I believe, at some points, because mechanically difficult to do in the time limit. But Topsy-Turvy is going to make it to 3 stars, whereas Test Subject will not, because Topsy Turvy is played in some competitive decks right now, notably taking the place of Inner Fire in the Divine Spirit combo decks.
Test Subject, 5 stars.
So in short, Test Subject doesn't quite work out. 2 stars. It is the star of the Test Subject Topsy Turvy deck, but boy has that deck fallen off the wayside. Not quite strong enough against the other combo decks out there. Versus, I should say, the other combo decks out there, which do it better while being less dangerous.
Next up, Dead Ringer, a loot hoarder, which tutors for exactly Death Rattle minions, which is probably better than loot hoarder if you're looking for exactly those, which I see happening in exactly Quest Priest, and for that reason I'm going to rate Dead Ringer 2 stars.
The Dead Ringer saw a decent amount of experimentation just because Topsy Turvy Test Subject was all the rage for the first month of BOOMSDAY, and Dead Ringer was in that deck, and now it is not in any deck.
Cloning Device, 1 star. This is a aggressively bad card. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really bad, 1 star.
Omega Medic, 1 star. This card does have applications in terms of, it's a 3-mana 3/4, that's not bad. That being said, I don't really see Control Priest needing more heals.
Pretty much. It's a good card, question mark, in the sense that it looks powerful, but the meta isn't right for it, the Priest deck isn't quite strong enough for it, and the Priest deck doesn't need it.
Extra Arms, 1 star. Putting Extra Arms on a Test Subject is very flavorful, but it's not actually good.
Yeah, Extra Arms, good flavor card, bad actual card, 1 star.
Reckless Experimenter, 2 stars. Only reason why I'm not giving it 1 star is because it has so much hype to it that I do believe it's going to be recklessly experimented with. Ho ho ho! So, I'm going to explain why I don't think a Reckless Experimenter deck is going to be good. The idea is on turn 5, you play your 4/6, and you play your Double Sorag, and that's a 5/5. Cool, right? But is that really worth basing a deck around?
No, it isn't. But what was good to base a deck around Reckless Experimenter was a big surprise, which is that you ran Ticking Abomination of all cards. Like, could you imagine if I told you in the initial card ratings, guys, I'm gonna rate Reckless Experimenter some amount of stars because I think it's a good combo of Ticking Abomination. You'd think I was insane. But it turns out that Reckless Experimenter, Ticking Abomination, Mechathune was actually a good finishing move. That said, even though Reckless Experimenter did have some hype, and while it is a pure OTK deck, it's still tough to cycle through your entire deck and then play the Reckless Experimenter and carry all the Abominations through, as well as the Coffin Crasher and the Mechathune. So Reckless Experimenter just gets a 3 star for being a key player in the Mechathune combo deck.
Power Word Replicate, 1 star. It's like Faceless Manipulator, except you can only target friendly minions.
Which is terrible, 1 star.
Xeric Master Cloner, 1 star. Xeric Master Cloner is a better Cairn, but Priest has never really considered playing Cairn. A value Priest or a mid-range Priest has never come into existence.
Indeed, the value Priest deck didn't come into play because, boy, is value, in fact, correctly predicted by me to be terrible in this meta. Have you guys ever seen a Xeric Master Cloner cast, by the way?
And Xeric's Cloning Gallery, 2 stars. I think you do run Xeric's Cloning Gallery in either this Reckless Experimenter deck, which is going to be amazing somehow, maybe, or in just Quest Priest.
So interestingly enough, Asmodai actually, with Xeric's Cloning Gallery help and Resurrect Priest, held a rank 1 legend for a while. That said though, Asmodai is but 1 man, and ultimately Resurrect Priest, I'm rating it at a tier 4 deck. So Xeric's Cloning Gallery gets a 3 star for me. It's fun, and apparently in Asmodai's hand, it's actually really good.
Pogo Hopper, 1 star. People are gonna try it and they're gonna be like, wait a second, this deck sucks. I'd say that the payoff for this card is less than Faldorai's Strider.
I was almost right there. Pogo Hopper ends up having hit the criteria for 2 star by just a tiny amount. So 2 stars, but the lowest 2 star rating I can give to a card. Just because it's such a unique card that people wanted to try it out, but boy does it suck.
Lab Recruiter, 2 stars. I rank this card kind of along the same lines as Pogo Hopper in that I feel like it's going to be too slow.
The Lab Recruiter actually ends up being 3 stars as a viable tech option for the Quest Rogue deck. If you really want to go long in a Quest Rogue deck, with Valyria, you can go infinite by playing Lab Recruiter on Lab Recruiter, and that ensures that you never run out of a deck, ensuring that you are the ultimate in super long-term value.
Violet Haze, 1 star.
Like Astral Rift, and Violet Haze is worse than Astral Rift, and Astral Rift got a 1 star, so this also gets a 1 star.
Necrim Blade, 2 stars. You can combo it on the cube. You can combo it on the cube that has eaten Leroy to potentially do 1-turn kills. My problem with Necrim Blade, though, and why I think it ultimately won't work out, is because that is only going to be 18 damage plus the Necrim Blade swing of 21.
So what I missed on the fact of Necrim Blading the Ooze is, what if you do it for value/tempo purposes instead? And that ends up being actually really good. If you use the Necrim Blade to summon stuff out of the cube, that is a huge wave of not just value but also tempo. Your opponent usually can't deal with it. So Death Rattle Rogue ends up being somewhere in the tier 2 or 3 category, and therefore I'm rating Necrim Blade 4 stars.
So how about a Value Rogue, you might ask? Well, you'll hear more about my idea of Value Rogue when I review the Legendary, but in short, I don't think a Death Rattle Value Rogue is going to be worth it. Blight Nozzle Crawler, 1 star. Vilespine Slayer, except it's slow.
Blight Nozzle Crawler gets 2 stars for having seen experimentation in this Death Rattle Rogue, but ultimately not being stuck with, as it was a bit weak for that deck.
Academic Espionage, 1 star. Well, it hurts me to rate my own reviewed card 1 star, and by the way, at the time that I reviewed it, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. It could be really good. On seeing how all the other cards are here and how I don't think there's gonna be aggressive enough cards to punish the combo decks, I don't think this is going to work out.
Academic Espionage is one of those cards that really highlights the fact that different cards are created for different people. And Academic Espionage is not a good card if you're trying to win the game, but if you're trying to have fun, then Academic Espionage is the card for you. And it's these people who want to have fun, and it's not that bad a card to like really sink your win rate, since it's just a card you could throw into theoretically any value or later game rogue. It's a big high roll card. Sometimes you just want to gamba, and Academic Espionage gets a 2 star for seeing enough play.
Myra Rot Spring, great battle cry, 1 star. Clearly very good in a value rogue deck, but I think I've established that I don't believe that a value rogue deck is good.
Yes indeed, Myra Rot Spring was too slow and didn't see enough play, 1 star.
Praised Chemist, 1 star. Odd Rogue could use this card, but the problem is you're competing with Fungalmancer, which doesn't require the combo. You're competing with Vilespine Slayer, where the combo gives you an Assassinate, a 5-mana spell, instead of a Cold Blood, a 1-mana spell, and you're competing with Scalebane, which is +1/+1 stats and +3 attack every turn.
You're also competing with Giggling Inventor. But Crazed Chemist actually did see experimentation on Odd Rogue, enough that it pumped it into the 2-star category.
Necrim Vial, 1 star. Just like Necrim Blade, except Necrim Blade is better than Necrim Vial, pretty much.
So Necrim Vial and Necrim Blade I'm actually going to give different ratings. Necrim Vial is basically Necrim Blade except worse in general, in the sense of you really want Necrim Blade, Necrim Vial is like the Death Rattle activator you'll settle for, and it's not run in all the decks that do run Necrim Blade. So Necrim Vial gets a 3 star.
Mars Unstable Element, 5 stars. This card is actually good because it will fit into a pre-existing deck of Odd Rogue. I think it's a good last-ditch effort.
Mars Unstable Element does see play in some Odd Rogues. Notably at the HCT tournament, people who did bring Odd Rogue did bring Mars Unstable Element, and it was used as a last-ditch effort to win the game. And it's a very valid option, though some Odd Rogues do not run Mars Unstable Element. Ultimately, Mars Unstable Element is going to get a 4 star for being a sometimes card in a tier 1 deck.
Beaker's Lightning, 1 star. We kind of have Zap as a measure for how good this might be, and this is 0 mana now, but 2 mana later. No one's playing this card, though I did see it appear in like an even Shaman list that was doing well at some point, but not enough. Voltaic Burst, 1 star. It looks like a Thunderhead deck with the Overload combo, as well as this card itself is looking to build a board and then perhaps play Bloodlust. But I think that general plan is weaker than even Shaman's plan. And yes, it did end up being weaker than even Shaman, but I was slightly under on how much people would try it, so Voltaic Burst 2 stars because people did try it out with Thunderhead in enough numbers. Omega Mind, 1 star. The problem is, this is a Control Shaman card. Exactly, the problem is Control Shaman, and for the most part Control anything, didn't work out in this expansion because of the combo decks from Druid and, I mean, other Kassoon decks too. Menacing Nimbus, 4 stars. This card, I think, can actually just fit right into existing even Shaman, and it's going to be a decent card. So yeah, right on point here. Menacing Nimbus is very good. That said, Menacing Nimbus is in fact a card that is not in every one of those decks. Personally, I think it should be. Menacing Nimbus, 4 stars. Elementary Reaction, hesitant 2 stars. I think it could be higher. Reason why it could be higher is because it might fit into 2 already pretty good decks right now, but Elementary Reaction, 2 stars. It was experimented with, mostly an even Shaman, but too slow for even Shaman. Electra Storm Surge, 5 stars. What a powerful effect. Goes into pretty much every Shaman deck that has a spell that can be consistently cast for the upcoming plenty of years. That was a short review for something I considered 5 star, but that's probably because I just assumed Shudderwalk. It's gonna be even stronger. And to some extent, yes, and to some extent, no. The Shudderwalk that we all knew and love actually changed to a mid-range Shudderwalk deck. And Electra Storm Surge is in that deck. Sometimes Electra Storm Surge is in that deck, I should say. So for that reason, Electra Storm Surge gets a 4 star rating. Thunderhead. This is a potential game changer card, 1 star. So I considered putting this into even Shaman, and there aren't quite enough Overload cards to make that work. And then I considered making a Thunderhead deck before you make the claim of, you know, Trump doesn't rate cards off of new decks that could come about. He just looks about if you... I did look into it, and it does suck, but I was just wrong in how much it would be experimented with. So Thunderhead, 2 stars. It even saw some experimentation in even Shaman, but dropped from that list ultimately. Storm Chaser, 3 stars. It could go into Shudderwalk as perhaps a one-of, and I think it's going to be a tech option because it draws you your Volcano. If you're playing an aggro deck and you play Storm Chaser, then it draws you Bloodlust. The Storm Chaser saw a little bit of experimentation across Shudderwalk type lists and across this Thunderhead Bloodlust type deck, so 2 stars. Eureka! 1 star. So Eureka also enables Shaman to do some pretty crazy Malagos stuff, but why play Shaman and having Eureka get your Malagos and then only have 4 mana left over when you can play Druid and then get your Malagos? Exactly! So for that reason, Eureka was accurately predicted to be 1 star. And finally, the Stormbringer, 1 star. Try casting Bloodlust and killing your opponent. It did not see play because it's too slow. The Warlock cards. We're beginning with my #1 pick for the best card in this set. 5 stars, the Solarium. Warlock, 1 mana, draw 3 cards. Ah! Oh my god! Now I need to fix my hair. Put into already the most popular deck in the meta of Zoo. It's gonna only be even better. I kind of compare it to Myra's in the sense that it's a card you play when you've nearly run out of cards, but the Solarium is better in the sense that it doesn't just kill your deck. And worth mentioning is that not every single Zoo deck, which is tier 1, runs Solarium, but enough of the percentage does that I'm going to still stick with a 5 star rating. Soul Infusion, 5 stars. Zoo already runs Serenite Changing. Zoo is probably going to run another card that I'm going to rate 5 stars, doubling him. And Soul Infusion is +4/+4 if you get it on either Doubling Imp or Serenite Chain Gang. Yeah, and for that reason, Soul Infusion is really good, 5 stars. Worth noting, though, just like the Solarium, and also surprisingly like Doubling Imp, there are so many Zoo decks out there that some of the top ones also don't run Soul Infusion / Doubling Imp. But most of them do, so we're leaving it at 5 stars. Void Analyst, 2 mana 2/2. 1 star. It's no Prince Kaliseth, that's for sure. Yeah, just run Prince Kaliseth, 1 star. Spirit Bomb, 3 stars. Many make the argument that this is a good single target removal for Evenlock, who lacks that anytime before turn 6 Siphon Soul if they even play it. Though I see it as a sometimes maybe tech option, maybe sometimes include maybe a 1-of in Evenlock. The Spirit Bomb did in fact see some experimentations, first as a 2-of and then as a 1-of, and then finally it was cut from most lists because the cost was just too high. 2 stars. Demonic Project, 2 stars. I've said that I think this upcoming meta is going to include combo decks such as Shudderwock and such as Malygos Druid. So here's a disruption option for those decks. And there were more combo decks than expected, more Druid notably. Demonic Project valid tech options, 3 stars. Another Soul Buster, 2 stars. I think that this card is not actually going to see play in Zoo, but it will certainly be experimented with. I just think that the Soul Infusion Doubling Imp path is better. So yeah, another Soul Buster Crystallized looks like a path that Zoo could take, but Heal Zoo was so dominating that people didn't even try this version out, so 1 star on the Buster. Doubling Imp, 5 stars. This is insane for Zoo. And boy, have we faced that over and over again since Zoo was tier 1 for a long time with the most played deck. So Doubling Imp, 5 stars. Omega Agent, 1 star. Omega Agent just feels not quite good enough. Indeed, Omega Agent is too slow for Zoo, which is not always planning to get to turn 10. And that's where you want to Soul Infuse the Omega Agent. So 1 star. Ectomancy, 1 star. Boy, is this really a if you're ahead win, really ahead. And you don't need a when you're ahead win even more card. 1 star. And finally, we have the big legendary for Warlock. Well, no, that was Solarium. This one's 1 star, Dr. Morgan. 8 mana, 5/5. Oof. Death Rattle swap with a minion. Oof. Fun fact, I was watching this Hearthstone streamers were wrong about BOOMSDAY card videos, and to my surprise, one popular streamer actually rated Dr. Morgan extremely highly. Anyways, Dr. Morgan ended up sucking. 1 star. Eternium Rover, a fantastic defensive option. 2 stars. It is better than Armor Smith, which is saying something. Armor Smith has seen play, but the main problem is that there are a variety of decks out there. It's not just aggro, and there are a lot of decks that Eternium Rover is dead against. All these combo decks. You're so right, Trump. You're so right. So Eternium Rover ended up being a tech option for the mech deck that I thought would work. I'm rating Odd Warrior roughly about a tier 2, so Eternium Rover being sometimes in that would put Eternium Rover at 3 stars. Omega Assembly. Now here's a mech card I can get behind. 5 stars. 1 mana, draw 3 cards. Wow! Omega Assembly, as well as quite a few of these cards, managed to push Odd Warrior into a decent tier 2, almost tier 1 status. It's actually debatable if Odd Warrior is tier 1 or tier 2. But for these ranking purposes, these rating purposes, I've decided to elect to put most of these cards that are fitting into Odd Warrior at 4 stars instead of 5. So, Omega Assembly, 4 stars. Weapons Project, 5 stars. Whew. 2 mana, 2/3 weapon. And even better, you can combo this with Harrison Jones. 7 mana, draw 3 cards, get a 5/4, get a 2/3 weapon, gain 6 armor. It's almost like Ultimate Infestation. So let me say this, if Odd Warrior could run this card, it totally would, but unfortunately it's not Odd. Wasn't quite wrong in the sense that every single Control Warrior deck that isn't Odd does run this card. Notably right now, Mecha Thune deck does run it, and it did see play in Old Control Warrior, it sees play in Recruit Warrior, but those are all kind of fringy decks, so Weapons Project ends up being 3 stars. Rocket Boots, 1 star. Do any of your
Control Warrior minions want Rush? Not really. You'd rather gain 5 armor with shield block. So therefore 1 star. Dinomatic. 2 stars. It is 5 mana. I don't know if Control Warrior can fit this card in. It didn't quite make the cut in the theory crafted deck that I made for Control Warrior, but it was pretty high on the list. It was like in the top 40 cards, which means I could easily see it entering Control Warrior. And if the meta became more aggro focused, especially with multiple small minions, then Dinomatic is pretty good. Dinomatic is in Odd Warrior, which I did say is like borderline tier 2, tier 1, but whereas I rounded a Mega Assembly down to a 4-star card, we'll round Dinomatic up to a 5-star card, because Dinomatic is that good in that deck. Notably, it can deal burst 8 damage if your opponent has only 1 8 health minion on the board, which actually happens all the time. Super Collider, 1 star, 1-dimensional and clearing the board, and Warrior can already do that fine. I don't think it'll actually see play. Turns out that Warrior could in fact use a few more tools that deal with minions. I was really concerned about how much like Malagos was going to be in play, and Shutterwalk rather, and other potential combo decks, but there were enough minion decks out there that Super Collider was a very, very, very good defensive tool against minion-based decks. And Super Collider is actually so good that, just like Dinomatic, I'm running it up to 5 stars in these Odd Warrior decks. Security Rover, 1 star. It's like Hogger, and boy is this a lot of stats off of that Hogger. Yeah, it's really bad, 1 star. Beryllium Nullifier, 1 star. I can understand Blizzard's reluctance to make the Beryllium Nullifier better in terms of either mana cost or in stat value, because it is possible that some decks are just locked out completely. But yeah, boy are those stats really bad for 7 mana. Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, 5 stars. I had this card in my top 10, pretty high up, and I think it's going to help carry Control Warrior to be an awesome deck in the meta. Dr. Boom Mad Genius does in fact deserve the 5-star rating for carrying Odd Warrior into viability. Last expansion, Odd Warrior was like just completely worthless. Tier 4 probably, maybe tier 3. And now it's like borderline tier 1, tier 2. And then we've got the Boom Ship, 3 stars. This is a great card to fit right into Recruit Warrior. I don't think it's going to define the deck of Recruit Warrior since it's just a nice addition to the deck. Boom Ship, 3 stars. First of all, yes, it is used in Recruit Warrior, which is basically fallen off the wayside. But more impressively and unexpectedly, it is a key factor in the Mechathune Warrior deck. Really cool. So Boom Ship ends up getting 3 stars, as that is a fringe deck right now. If you watched my top 10 Boomsday cards, you might have noted that I actually put 0 of the neutral cards up there. I don't think there's any generally good neutral cards. I was wrong! The magnetic cards and the mech cards in general understated, with perhaps the notable exception of War Gear. So let's get started with mediocre mech review. Starting with Skaterbot, 1 star. Yep, Skaterbot sucked, 1 star. Notably, it did have over a certain threshold of played, but that is most likely, and boy was this annoying, because Whizbang was played so much and Skaterbot was in a few of the Whizbang decks that it confounded the data a little bit, but I am quite certain that Skaterbot did not see enough play to warrant 2 stars. Next up, Mecharoo, 2 stars. If a mech deck takes off, especially Mech Hunter, I expect Mecharoo to be in there. And in fact, I have saved a message from my Twitch.
Mecharoo is a better neutral possessed villager and you think it is bad. Test subject is a meme and
this
you
is
think
so
it is
good.
good. Sigh.
Well, alright. I am so glad I saved that because I was pretty certain on the Mecharoo and I was a little bit sure on the test subject. It turns out that we are tied. Mecharoo 2 star, just like test subject. But there's a bit of a difference. Test subject is a legitimate enabler to a deck, whereas Mecharoo was experimented with in a few different decks and still is like here and there in a bunch of bad decks, Whereas Test Subject, you could legitimately get a good win rate with that deck. Well, I mean, I guess you could legitimately win with Mecharoo too, but anyways. Well, you know what? He's not wrong! If you didn't do the immense amount of digging and deck construction that I did, you would think I was insane. I was right! There are no good mech decks. Point kinda to me. Goblin Bomb. In my opinion, like, a meme card of the set. I will say this base card is way worse than the cards that actually spawn Goblin Bombs, but I would also posit to you that those cards are all also bad. It's a really bad 1 star. Fateful Lumi. 1 star. So yeah, Lumi sucked, mech decks didn't work, 1 star. Crystallizer, 2 stars. Maybe you could consider it in Warrior because armor is good. Maybe you can consider it in healing classes because then you can heal the Warlock Spellstone, the Druid Spellstone, but all of those fringe cases just seem not quite good enough, as well as it being a 1 mana 1/3. Yes, Crystallizer, 1 star, even though it had the same stats as Dire Mole, which was played in fringe across a few different decks. The deal 5 damage to your hero, gain 5 armor never managed to be played as an upside anywhere. Whirly Glider, 1 star. This is a 2 mana 2/1 summons a Leopard Gnome. Is that good? No. Goblin Bomb is worse than Leopard Gnome, so Whirly Glider 1 star. Upgradable Framebot, 2 stars. In my opinion, 1 star, but I have to assume that given this is the mech expansion, that upgradable Framebot will be played. Oh, poor upgradable Framebot. I just bullied it, but yes, absolutely, that was true. Upgradable Framebot gets a 2 stars for getting some amount of exploration due to being a mech, as well as, more importantly, it is sometimes being used in the Divine Spirit type deck, because that is a lot of health on 2 mana. Unpowered Mauler, 1 star. At least we can all agree, even if you think I'm dead wrong on the mechs, that this mech is bad. Yeah, oh man, 1 star. Toxicologist, 2 stars. Not entirely sure what type of rogue it'll see play in. I mean, certainly Kingsbane rogue. Yes, exactly. So 2 stars because it's in the fringe deck of Kingsbane. Spark Engine, 1 star. It's comparable to Loot Hoarder. Would you rather have a 1/1 Spark with Rushed in your hand, or would you rather have a card? 1 mana 1/1 Rush card. Answer, card is better. Spark Engine, 1 star. It is bad. Galvanizer, 2 stars. The only reason why this is getting a 2-star rating is because of Mechathune. Galvanizer can enable Mechathune to be played with other cards, and I think Mechathune has a chance of being a good deck. Absolutely right. Galvanizer, 3 stars. It is in the Mechathune Control Warlock deck. Folkscale Chemist, 1 star. There's some murmurings that you might want to put this in Divine Spirit Inner Fire Priest, but nah. No, 1 star. Spring Rocket, 1 star. It's Disciple of Cthulhu, except it's a mech. Yep, 1 star. And stop giving it's a mech for an excuse. Microtech Controller. Thanks for very good. To get 4/3 worth of stats. No, not good enough. But wait, it's 2 mechs, you might argue. No, I'm not going to take that excuse anymore. Kaboombot. 1 star. 1 star. But wait, it's a mech. No, 1 star. Pass. Electrolyte, 1 star. In a world where a 3 mana 4/4 isn't really competitively good enough, a 3 mana 4/4, if you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, which is basically a control deck most of the time, is certainly not good enough. 1 star. 3 mana 1/5 Taunt, 1 star. Oh wait, it has magnetic. Okay, it has magnetic. That could be good on something like an egg from the Paladin. But wait, it's a card that is really one-dimensional, is really vulnerable to silence. This wants to be played on a high-attack mech, and there's just not very many. Bronze Gatekeeper actually gets a pass to 2 stars, because it is in the Inner Fire Combo Priest. The Topsy-Turvy, rather. The Divine Spirit Combo Priest is what I should say. Brainstormer, and really fringe in Paladin. It's Twilight Drake, except it only counts spells. Augmented Elec. Yeah, 1 star on that one. 1 star. This is one of the cards that could actually see play though, because there are a lot of shuffling cards into your deck archetypes in Rogue, but I do think that those archetypes are all extremely bad. Yeah, this deck was mostly showing up in the casual type decks, which had enough experimentation to push this into 2 stars. Mostly saw it when you really wanted to have fun with academic espionage.
Whizbang the Wonderful! 2 stars. Note that this rating is basically an asterisk. I considered rating it either Whizbang out of Whizbang, or maybe 5 stars, or 2 stars, or 1 star. Like, I don't really know. Because Whizbang is uncomparable to any other card. It sucks because the deck that it creates will be on average worse than any tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 deck out there. But it just might see 1% of play in the meta.
And in fact, the stats are in. Whizbang did see more than 1% played. On top of that, Whizbang is so out there that it has gotten banned from tournaments. 2-star, 5-star, Whizbang out of Whizbang, it's all correct. Whizbang 2 stars.
One could argue that it's a 6-star card because it has already been banned from
Oh, 6-star card, yes.
Japanese Pinata. 1 star. And it's 4 mana for a 4/3, which gives you a mediocre card when it dies.
Yep,
Steel
1 star.
Rager. 1 star.
1
Next,
star.
we're going to be able to come up
It's
with
Steel
a
Rager.
better Replicating Menace. Now, here's a mech that's actually decent. 1 star. The fact that I'm giving Replicating Menace a 1 star is like the death blow to this aggro mid-range mech deck.
I was right, it didn't work. Replicating Menace 1 star.
Next up, Paladin Reaper, 1 star. It's no Paladin Shredder.
Yep, 1 star.
So I like the throwback to it. Omega Defender, 1 star. 4 mana for 12/6 is certainly good. This is not so great though if there are competing decks in the meta that are aiming to kill you around turn 13 with an uncounterable combo.
And more than that, it's also just a Stegodon if your opponent is trying to kill you earlier, which is something I didn't emphasize, such as Odd Rogue or Zoo, Death Rebel Hunter or something like that, 1 star.
Harbinger Celestia, 1 star. This is my pick for the worst legendary of the set.
And it's true! Statistically, it is the worst legendary in the set, 1 star.
Explodinator, mostly seen theory crafted in Hunter. 1 star though, because as I mentioned, I just don't think this mid-range mech thing is gonna work out.
Explodinator surprisingly gets 2 stars, just because the sheer amount of stuff that you're putting out there for 4 mana, 6 health across 3 things, was enough that some token decks experimented with it. I mean, they are bad, and it's not actually seeing any play anymore, but 2 stars for the experimentation that it had. Even Hunter ends up being like a vague thing
4
too.
stars. Where I think it's actually going to see play is in Shutterwalk. You play Coppertail Imposter, and then that means you can actually front load the Shutterwalk because it'll gain stealth, which means you can play the Shutterwalk first.
That didn't end up working out, so Coppertail Imposter gets a 1 star. Some people were thinking about Coppertail Imposter into Wargear the Curve, and I was like, wait, that's terrible. And yes, that is in fact still terrible.
Ziliax, 2 stars. You know what I think? I think this is basically Seal of Champions that costs 5 mana instead of 3 mana. And sure, you can play this card by itself, and sure, it does activate Corpse Taker. Like, there's a few things that are nice about it. But ultimately, I don't think that the Corpse Taker deck is very good in the meta. I don't think that a control deck is going to really need to use the lifesteal.
That's where I was wrong. Control decks are running Ziliax because the lifesteal pushes the card to be a good card. And I wasn't really thinking too much about the lifesteal here, but it usually gets you 6 health because it lifesteals on the attack and then it lifesteals on the way back. And you block off another 2 health and it removes. It's kind of like the Swiss Army knife. It's not used in aggro decks because it is too un-aggro, but in control decks like Odd Warrior and even Death Rattle Hunter, Ziliax is seeing play. So therefore, Ziliax 5 stars.
Wargear. This is the card that is going to define a mech deck, the reason why you play a mech deck. So I am going to implement my +1 star rating on this one. 3 stars. Which is to say that I think that the best that a mech deck is going to do is going to be tier 4. Very powerful, 5 mana +5/+5 for any class is pretty good, but do you really want to put 2 Blessing of Kings +2 Wargear in your deck? Isn't that a little bit ruined? 1 sec. I told Blizzard off. They were like, stop trashing mech stuff in this set, man. We gotta feed our families. And I was like, no. I have to keep the ratings objective. And sure, you have that spike in the power on Wargear. You're going to deal 5 damage and you have a pretty big minion left on the board. But is that really worth the sacrifice?
And the answer is no, it wasn't worth the sacrifice. And ha! I was right, everyone else was wrong. For once. War Gear is in fact the reason why you would play a mech deck. But it wasn't enough reason, so War Gear was experimented with across all the mech cards, but now it does not see any play. 2 stars. Subject 9. 3 stars. I do think that for a certain deck, Hunter is already a deck that does run a bunch of secrets because the Spellstone is so insane with the secrets that you could legitimately run 6 different types of secrets in your deck, and then you could consistently play Subject 9 and draw potentially like 4 or 5 cards with it. And that's a tier 1 deck! So Subject 9, obviously, 5 stars. Seaphorium Bomber, 1 star. Basically, the main argument against Seaphorium Bomber is why not just run Life Drinker? In pretty much any case where you could run Seaphorium Bomber. Yep, 1 star. Rusty Recycler, 1 star. Yep, 1 star. Basically outclassed by the Alpha Bomb. Loose Specimen, 1 star. 5 mana 6/6 isn't good enough these days. This is a 5 1 mana star 6/6 for that with reason. a drawback. You could say that the 5 mana 6/6 does have an upside in that it can activate your Acolyte of Pain, but it's not worth it. Holomancer, one of the worst cards in the set, 1 star. It's a wow, what a bad card, 1 star. 5 mana 3/3. Giggling Inventor, 5 stars. This is, in my opinion, the best neutral in the set because it is a card that is absolutely crushing to any aggro deck. It's 5 mana for 4/5 worth of stats, which doesn't sound that impressive until you realize that, well, it comes with 2 Divine Shields as well. And if you count Divine Shield as roughly 2 health apiece, then that is 5 mana for 4/9 worth of stats, of which 8 has Taunt. And that is major cheating, and the taunts are arranged in such an annoying way. I did Dr. Boom! Woo! Although I did have some help from Twitch chat. I remember I originally had this at 3 stars, and then like I got talked up, and I was like, yeah, okay, I guess if I think of it kind of like Sludge Belcher, alright, 5 stars. It's a card so powerful that it had to get nerfed by not 1, but 2 mana. Next up, EMP Operative, 1 star. I've just said that I don't think mechs will work out, so the tech option to destroy a mech will probably not be very useful. Boy, is that an understatement, but yeah, EMP Operative is like the, just in case we missed the super magnetized mech being insane, we're gonna toss this EMP Operative into the set just to be on the safe side. And it turns out, Blizzard, we didn't need the safe side, 1 star. Spark Drill, 1 star. It's kind of like Starfire, which actually is seeing play, but drawing a card is probably preferred to adding 2/1/1 sparks with Rush. Missile Launcher, 1 star. 1 star. Compare this with Baron Geddon, 1 less mana for 3 less attack and 1 less health and 1 less damage to all other characters. But why? Well, it's because this is a combo with Venomizer. So Missile Launcher 1 star, it ended up being that the combo wombo with the Venomizer was not good enough. Mechanical Whelp, 1 star. It's a lot like Twilight Summoner, which is a 4 mana 1/1 summoned to 5/5. That didn't see any play whatsoever. And I see the same fate for a Mechanical Whelp. So Mechanical Whelp ends up being 4 stars because it is played in the Death Rattle Rogue of today. And it was played in the Death Rattle Hunter in a variant, but that fell off the wayside because it was not as strong as the current version of Death Rattle Hunter. Turns out that playing a 6 mana 2/2 and then swinging your weapon and getting a 7/7 immediately is a very good tempo swing. Damaged Stegotron, 1 star. So that's possible in Recruit Warrior. We'll put in this because they do have Sleepy Dragon at a 4/12 for 9. Maybe? So it did end up being played in the Recruit Warrior with the Boom ship as well as with Gather Your Party, but that wasn't really enough to justify giving it a 2-star rating still. So still 1 star. Arcane Dynamo is bad stats, 1 star. But it turned out that Arcane Dynamo was experimented with, and even Shaman in particular. Not anymore, there were better cards found, but 2 stars for the experimentation. Star Aligner, 1 star. It's a meme, but hey, War Golem is decent. In Standard, yes, 1 star, but worth noting that this guy is the poster face bad guy of Wild. Because it's a nice win condition, you just brand Starliner, and then you win the game. Bulldozer, 1 star. It's Force Tank Max. This card, even though it's vanilla, basically, it was almost 2 stars, In Recruit Warrior, it was a nice big card to get out. And it's a mech also, which has some synergy with Dr. Boom, but still 1 star.
And finally, last and not least, the mega card, Mecha'thun. 4 stars? I'm not gonna sleep on this one. It has some real potential. It probably more likely is that it's a spectacular flop, but if the meta evolves in a certain way where combo decks are supreme, Mecha'thun just might be the best counter to that, because in the case of combo versus combo, you are simply trying to outrace your opponent to winning the game, and Mecha'thun can win the game pretty fast. There are 3 main ways that I see Mecha'thun decks working. One is with even luck. Tap, draw out all your cards, you eventually play throughout the course of the game 2 of the Galvanizers.
True, Mecha'thun was played in Warlock. 2 main variations, one is even luck, one is like a just draw heavy luck.
Another option is you could play Druid with it. You play a Miracle Druid, you play Gadgetzan Auctioneer, you play a bunch of cheap cards like...
So yes, there's a Druid version of this as well. It's kind of Togwoggle / Mecha'thun. Yeah, you win the game with Mecha'thun instead of Togwoggle, it plays very similarly.
Is with Rogue. You put it into a Miracle Rogue core.
With Rogue, not so much. But misses where Mecha'thun Priest and Mecha'thun Warrior were also things. Mecha'thun unexpectedly works in Priest because of being able to blow up your Ticking Abomination. And then Warrior, you can boom ship it out. So kind of surprising additions to Mecha'thun viable options. And for that reason, across all those decks, probably the most successful one being Druid, Mecha'thun, you get a 5-star rating. So it turns out that BOOMSDAY had about half of its cards actually see some real experimentation to it at the very least. So BOOMSDAY ends up to have caused some interesting deck tinkering at the very least.